Good day to you. It's been a while since I've recorded. Today it's June 1st, 2025. So, yes, we are in a new month. And today I thought it would be good to do an episode or a video about what am I watching. And the movie I watched last night was the 1978 film Superman the Movie, starring Christopher Reeve, directed by Richard Donner. Uh, and so I thought it would be a good one to talk about because I watched a couple weeks ago. I did a video talk about Superman and Lois. The new Superman movie is coming out in July, and so I'm keeping my thing going of watching Superman movies and thinking about them. And so when I look at a movie and I review it and I analyze it, I ponder it, there are so many different angles to come at when you're talking about this movie. And so, like with Superman, there is a few things you want to consider when you're looking at the extent of it, when you think about the worldview and the contributions of the movie. You look at Superman's based off of these comic books that came out in 1938 during the height of the Great Depression. Which, by the way, I like that in certain editions of the 78 film, there is this intro where there's this girl, she's reading a comic. At least it sounds like a girl. Maybe it was a boy, I don't know. It sounded like a girl. But she's reading, it says that during the heights of the Great Depression, talks about the Daily Planet and all that stuff. And then slowly the curtain peels back to start the Superman logo, the theme, and all that stuff, and get people really revved up. Which I imagine when you watch that in theaters, it must have been like, Superman's that iconic Superman theme by John Williams, the energy, and see that's the other thing. So when you're looking at this movie, one context is it's coming from this comic book, Superman, created by Jerry Siegel and Joel Shuster. I think I got that right. Sometimes I get the names mixed up. But they created Superman. And there's a whole legacy of comics by 1978. And there's been a lot since then. When we watch this, we have to remember that comics that happened after 78 didn't happen yet. And so we have to, when we're looking at this in light of things that came out later, that's not a fair review on it. Kind of key example is how they portray Lex Luthor. They portray Lex Luthor as the greatest criminal mind of our time. And, whereas if you see Lex Luthor in something like Lois and Clark, New Adventures of Superman, or in Smallville, or even the animated series, he's more of this evil corporate billionaire type thing. And so, but to be fair, that was kind of the predominant view or portrayal of Lex Luthor after the movie had been in production. And so that's kind of why you don't see that. So, that's an example of things you kind of got to consider. You also consider, when was the movie released? What was the world like in 1978? And when you consider that, it makes you think, again, more about the film. You consider Richard Donner. What was his intent? What was his goals as he wrote to this film? And as you think about all of these, as I think about these things, I do believe that this was the 1978 Superman film was incredible. It was an incredible film. Because I love this tagline. You see it right there. You can almost see it in my screen, but here I'm going to highlight it. Right there. You will believe a man can fly. Now, today we live in the midst of a world of all these special effects, CGI and everything. You believe a man can fly. It's not a big deal now. But in 1978, it was. Most Superman movies up till then, all they did is they showed Superman whoosh, jump off screens like, see, he flew away. Or they, it looked pretty fakey, any live action stuff they did. But here, I mean, they do a good job, even for today's standards, of portraying his flying. And I mean, like there's that iconic scene in the film where, and even the way they build it up, I love it. Like the slow build up. The kid, when he's a little kid, he he catches the truck. It's the slow build up. You're getting built up to seeing him as Superman. They kind of pulled the Jaws thing. Jaws, they turned out to be a genius move. It's accidental if you know the history of it. It was like the shark didn't work, but it turned out to be a genius thing. That the shark did not physically appear until like halfway through the movie. So similarly, you don't actually see him as Superman until like halfway through because you're kind of building your way to it. And so when it happened, it would be a big deal. And this is a much bigger deal in 1978 than it is in 2025. In 2025, we've seen so much. We've seen these Avengers movies, the Marvel stuff. We've seen what DC's done. We've seen, Star Wars. We've seen, all these movies. We don't have the same sense of awe. We've already seen so much. It's really kind of hard to impress us. But in 1978, it was a big deal. And so when you get to that scene, and the helicopter, first Lois is falling, and there's all these people around, and you hear the Superman music, and he flies up, and the way John Williams he's building it up, and when that moment happens, you can't help but feel that awe. It's so amazing, and I can't imagine what it must have been like for somebody in 1978 to see that scene. And they're totally in awe with believing a man can fly. And then it builds up, and then you have the very beautiful flying scene, which has the theme of "Can you da 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 da." It's such a that beautiful song, and it is a beautiful, enchanting moment, and the little bit of the thoughts in Lois's mind. It's kind of like that's the world that the people in 1978 are experiencing. I know Star Wars had been released, and they've gone through the awe and the awesomeness that is Star Wars, but 1978, it's only 2 years later. And even going farther, so I wanted to put this up here. I would love to play this, but I'm so worried about getting flagged for some copyright thing or whatever, and it just mutes it and blacks it out or something, and then I lose it. But this was a moment that I believe is pretty underrated in the film, because we talk about people talk about what are the great moments, what are the great shots in the Superman film, and I honestly think that this might be the most underrated scene. This is shortly after Clark's dad, or Pa John Kent, had died, his earthly parent, and he is come to the realization that it's time for him to leave, and he's found the crystal. He's being led to build the Fortress of Solitude up in the north, and there's this scene here in the field, and the music that John Williams plays here, it is such a beautiful song. It's so beautiful, but it's a callback. You think about John Williams' music, it doesn't sound like your music of dun, 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 dun. It's not that. It's not like the things that you might get from Star Wars. This is it's almost a callback to the old Western, to the Little House on the Prairie type days, because this moment, this shot, this is a cultural thing. Cinema is leaving the era of the Western. Actually, let's not say it's not leaving; it's left it. up until the late 60s, early 70s even, westerns were everything. They were the thing when it came to cinema. There were so many of them, even more than you have superhero movies these days. And then they got overdone. You had Blazing Saddles, which satirized it. But this is letting you know that we're moving on. We're moving into a new era. And I believe this scene is representative of this. Cinema is moving into an era. And even culture itself is changing a little bit. Another tone, again, talking about the world that you live in. In 1976, the biggest movie that came out in 76 was by no doubt Star Wars. Next year, Star Wars celebrates 50 years, which is kind of crazy to think about. But, or was that 77? Hold on, I gotta check that. I gotta double check that. Okay, I was wrong. It was 1977 was when Star Wars came out. So 1 year earlier, you can kind of see it. I have the tab open because I like using tabs and using the browsers to kind of focus on a topic. I used to do like PowerPoints, but it takes so much time to put that together. This is quicker. But I was thinking about so there's a movie that came out in 1976. It's The Network. And there's this very infamous scene with Howard Beale. You maybe have even seen the scene. So there's this infamous scene from The Network, and it's called, you notice there's this line, it's like, I'm as mad as hell, I'm not going to take it anymore. And this scene was kind of where film and cinema had arrived to in 1976. I mean, here, I'm going to read the words. I'm going to read this. I'm going to do my best Howard Beale. I can't, again, I'm not going to play clips because I don't, some people, maybe there's a way to get around the copyright. If people know, let me know. But anyways, in 1976, Howard Beale, so he's this character, he's the main character. He says, so here it goes. He goes, I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everyone knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared or losing their job. The dollar buys, a nickel's worth, banks are going bust, shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter, punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do. And there's no end to it. We know the air is unfit to breathe and our food is unfit to eat, and we sit watching on TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad. Worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we are living in is getting small, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I don't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. My life has value, so I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell and I'm not going to take this anymore. So that's not the full quote. There's a little bit more about that. And if you notice, I mean, the theme of it is the world is just dreary and dark. And I mean, what he's talking about, I mean, the details may be different, but we could say these very same phrases. And so in 1976, movies are very kind of depressing. And the world is uncertain. I mean, you have, especially when you have the reality of the Nixon, Vietnam just got over. And then you have Nixon and his, Watergate and all these things. And the world is dim. And so Superman, this movie comes along. This scene, it's moving us into the city because that's where, a few scenes later, they're there. He's in Metropolis, which, they just use New York City for that. But the movie ends up being so hopeful. In a way Superman can be in the midst of the world that's problematic. And again, this is more of why this film was so good. It had a lot of good to it. Nataka, there are also some interesting theological undertones in the Superman film. So Superman himself, the character, was created by, like I said, Jerry Siegel and Joel Schuster, both of whom were Jewish. And Superman, and from what I understand, from their own admission, they use the story of Moses as recorded in the book of Exodus. They use that as inspiration for the writing of the creation of Superman. Because you think about the starting story of Moses is, if you go to Exodus chapter 1, is he's put into a basket and he's sent adrift and to escape the wrath of the Egyptians. Similarly, Superman, Kal-El, is placed into a ship, and I like it that in the 78 Superman film, they almost make, when you're looking downwards, it looks like it kind of does look like a basket. And so they lay him in it, and they send him adrift into space to escape the destruction of their planet. And so there's kind of that parallel. But there's even the fact that Kal-El it's actually two Hebrew words. Kal means voice, El means God. So Kal-El literally means the voice of God, which kind of gives a little extra weight to, there's this line in the movie where Chief Perry White, the editor-in-chief at the Daily Planet, he says, I want you to get interview with him because whoever interviews him will have the most important interview since, well, God spoke to Moses. So there's that scene, and I thought that's kind of meta because of the fact that, yeah, he was in Kal-El, voice of God, is what it means, and he's also based pretty well upon the story of Moses. So I thought that's kind of a neat little. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but that was kind of a cool little line. Richard Donner, though, when he wrote, so he directed this film, and he's one of the writers. The primary writer, actually, though, is Mario Puzo. He's the primary story writer. So I guess Richard Donner has some influence, but the primary influence is Mario Puzo. And one of the things you do note in the film is that, by the way, Puzo, he's the same guy that wrote The Godfather. But anyways, one of the things that is very notable is he leans into some Christian imagery. Because, here, I'm going to look up some of these lines. So where this biblical imagery, this Jesus imagery really comes through is in his conversations with Jor-El. So here's some quotes. I'm using IMDb for this, but here's one that says, so he says, this is Jor-El, played by Marlon Brando, and he says, you will travel far, my little Kal-El, but we will never leave you, even in the face of our death. The richness of our lives shall be yours. All that I have, all that I've learned, everything I feel, all this and more, I bequeath you, my son. You will carry me inside you all the days of your life. You will make my strength your own and see my life through your eyes as your life will be seen through mine. The Son becomes the Father, and the Father the Son. This is all I can send you, Kal-El. So the Son and the Father become one. This is very reminiscent of some of the words in the Gospel of John. Jesus saying, I and the Father are one. When I think it's in John 14, where it's a Philip that I think it is that's demanding that he wants to see the Father. And Jesus tells him, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. And so there's all this type of language. And so right here, you definitely hear John's gospel being echoed. And not to mention this all I sent, and then here we go. It gets a little bit far stronger here. This is in the Fortress of Solitude. He says, "Live as one of them, Kal-El, to discover where your strength and your power are needed, but always hold in your heart the pride of your special heritage. They can be a great people, Kal-El. They wish to be. They only lack the light to show the way. For this reason, above all, their capacity for good. I have sent them you, my only son." So here, lack the light. So Jesus says, I am the light of the world. The way, Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and life. Again, John's gospel. And then here, sent them you, my only son. That's John 3:16. So it's like, I mean, you read these two quotes right here, you can't help but think that Richard Donner was reading the Gospel of John while he's right, or or whoever put it into the scripts was reading the Gospel of John while they put it in. And by the way, this comes out in the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2, even as well. So if you think about the whole plot line of Superman, is so his parents send him away, and he's raised by this poor couple who are childless. Jesus sent away and raised. Well, not quite. It's not a perfect analogy, but Jesus is raised by a father who's not his own and who's not exactly high income or anything like that. So there's kind of that light parallels. He's kind of got that God man. He's an alien living amongst people as if he's one of them. Jesus is God, 100% God, 100% man, 100% of the time. So again, the parallels are not perfect, but you can tell he is leaning into it. And this is the thing is, it's not saying that Superman is Jesus. The idea, I think, is sometimes he's pointing to that. And in the 1970s, that type of stuff could happen in film. The Zack Snyder films, I have a little bit of the Superman as Jesus imagery, and sometimes it's really strong, but it's not. I don't think it's as good as what Richard Donner did. So, but anyways, I mean, so those are some of the things. It's the only complaints I really have with the Superman film is a lot of the stuff with Lex Luthor, and this is not a criticism of the late Gene Hackman, because I think Gene Hackman did amazing. He did excellent with what he was given. The greatest criminal mind of our time. I mean, his delivery, his passion, the way he did the lines, he did it expertly. I think he excelled in his performance. I only wish he had a better script to work with, or a better plot to work with. I mean, his plot was to drop a bunch of nukes and create land for real estate or whatever. It was kind of lame. And that was the part where I found was kind of weak. But, I mean, the little bit they have in Smallville, him losing his father by natural causes, by a heart attack, to remind him that he can't save everyone, such a valuable lesson he needed to have. All these powers, all these gifts, and I couldn't save him. That was something he had to learn. He had to know that. Every single one of us, and I imagine if you had a power like Superman, you would struggle so much with the Messiah complex. And so he has to come to terms with the fact that there are many problems, there's many evils, many ills in the world that he cannot save. And he needs to learn that. He learned that. But I mean, so that part was wonderful, really good. The Fortress of Solitude scenes, I love that. When he first starts saving all these people, he rescues Air Force One, he rescues Lois in the helicopter, the romantic flight that they have. I mean, it's so many great scenes, and John Williams, like I keep on saying it, his score so adds to it. The majestic, the awness of it. That I honestly don't know if a movie. It's going to be difficult for any Superman film to capture anymore because we've seen so much. We've been so desensitized to that awe. But as a whole, it's a great. I think I loved this movie, and there's so much to kind of dig into and dive into. So there you go. There's my thoughts of what I've been watching. 1978 Superman. I think probably in a week or two, I'll probably watch Superman 2, specifically the Richard Donner cut, which I prefer over the Richard Lester version, which is the one that's theatrical. But anyways, I hope this was enjoyment, and go watch a good movie, enjoy it, and it's fun to dive in and really dig into this stuff. But anyways, blessings to you as we enter into this month of June.